welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. All right, today's podcast is with Racquel Sutherland. Racquel is an actress, storyteller, dancer, educator in Jamaica, England, and Canada. She is currently serving as a volunteer on the board of directors for the Ottawa Storytellers. She dedicates her life and her performances to her two beautiful daughters, Nia and Malia, and she strives to push her own perceived boundaries with regards to each performance. And I'll give you guys a brief background as to where I met Racquel Sutherland. As you guys know, almost the next day of me landing in Canada, I had driven down to Ottawa to the Great Indian Festival, organizing a panel. A discussion and a program where there were different storytellers, and one of the storytellers was Raquel. Full disclosure, so my act was after Raquel's, and after watching Raquel perform, I was like, okay, this is unfair. This is so unfair because it was like Raquel's performance was on a scale of 1 to 10 at 12, and then I was like, and I remember looking at my wife and my wife looking at me, and my wife's reaction was, oh, you're screwed. Because my wife knows I'm not a storyteller. So on that note, Raquel, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Kushal.
All right, Raquel. So this is your first time, and I'll request you. I know I did read the brief introduction, but if you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your journey, it would be wonderful.
Okay, so again, I am Racquel Sutherland. I'm from Jamaica, and I came to Canada about this is 8 years ago or so. And when I came here, I came with my daughter and my husband, but he's no longer with me, so he's lost. But anyways, so when I came here, I joined. I came here as a student, so it was a bit of a struggle coming to Canada. Starting over, I was a teacher and I had to start all over again because they don't recognize, even though I studied in England, they didn't recognize us. But it has been, it has its ups and downs. And I'm glad I made the change to come here because now, as a single mom, now I have many struggles, but it was worth it in the end. And then it so happened that one day I got into storytelling. I went to do a shoot for Ottawa Storytellers during when the pandemic was kind of lifting. And from there, I just started getting discovered. But before that, I studied performing arts at Excelsior Community College in Jamaica. And then I got a scholarship and went to England. And from there, that's when I just launched. But now I'm like a teacher back and forth. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, Raquel, just to give you a brief background, obviously today's podcast is going to be about Jamaican culture, Jamaican arts, and trying to understand the nuances of Jamaican culture. But at least that's where full disclosure, the love of Indians for West Indies stems from a sport that both the parts of the world play, that's cricket.
Cricket.
Yes. So, and let me tell you, and I think it's pretty much the same even today with the current generation, because almost, at least in my generation, almost everybody I used to meet, their favorite team outside of Team India, because obviously if you're in India, you're naturally always attracted to Team India, but everybody's favorite team was West Indies.
Yeah.
Everybody loved the West Indies, and it was, if India is not playing, it has to be the West Indies. And obviously today, one of the most famous West Indian, I think he's retired now, but he was a superstar in India. It's Christopher Gale. Chris Gale is very
Yeah.
famous. I mean, I think he's one of the most loved people in India. They love him. They adore him. So the love for the Caribbean islands in India is actually not just skin deep; it's a soul deep, and they actually genuinely admire that culture. I think it's the song and dance. But if I was to say, what obviously, the Caribbean islands are different countries by itself coming
Hmm.
together only when they, I guess, play sport or some sports, because I guess it's only in cricket, if I know, that they come together to represent together, because otherwise you have Usain Bolt is obviously Jamaican and he represents Jamaica. He doesn't
Hmm.
represent the Caribbean islands. And so maybe we start with the background and history of Jamaica. Let's start there. So how do the islands come up, and how what's the story there?
Okay, so Jamaica is you know how we came about with the Taínos first was living in Jamaica. And then when the colonizers came, they basically killed off every one of them. And so when they colonized Jamaica, Jamaica had most of our ancestors, I would say, came from like Nigeria and Ghana. And so when they came about, just a brief history, they came on the slave trade and we were, colonized and we were enslaved and stuff like that. So we came about just having that strong roots from our Nigerian and Ghana culture. And Jamaicans, we are very proud and we are very strong. Most of they say the rebellious slaves then were like the Maroons who fought and went to the hills and they lived there. But after the colonizers killed off most of the Tainos and the slaves came to Jamaica, it so happened that Indians now, when slavery was about to abolished and stuff, Indians came to Jamaica, Indians, German persons from Germany, all over the world came to Jamaica and they kind of settled there. And so we have a strong Indian root too. In Portland, most of our Indians too, I think, lived there. So we have a strong root of Indians. So we are close to our Indian culture as well. And I love the Indian culture, to be honest. I love the food, everything.
Yeah. So it's very interesting that I think even a significant community of of Indian origin over there was also brought in as indentured laborers, if I remember
Right,
correctly.
the indentured laborers, they were getting to little to no money
Yeah.
basically when they came there. But slavery was abolished, but not so much
Hmm.
at that time when the Indians came. But they were getting little to nothing for working because the colonizers still wanted persons to work on their plantation. So that's why they came there. So
So and correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess the highest concentration of people of Indian origin, I think they're proud Caribbean members now. Recently was in a talk with Dr. Gyandev Maharaj, who's from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's a proud Caribbean Hindu. He always says, "I'm a proud Caribbean Hindu," and
mhm.
uh, and so I guess the major concentration was in Guyana, Trinidad, or Jamaica also has a significant Indian population.
Yeah, Jamaica is a really significant because I remember my friend, she lives in Portland and she talks about the Indians living there. A lot of them. So most of them, I believe, is populated um, down that side in Portland.
That's interesting. And what's fascinating is that I did not know about this. Obviously, my wife put me across to this. So the Indians in the Caribbean islands, they have their own genre of music too. It's very different from the Indian music. It's called soca chutney, and they have their own music, and it's very Caribbean. Obviously, they have taken all the
It's
Caribbean.
a mixture.
Yeah, it's an absolute blend, and I was shocked. I did not know about it. The way they have their weddings is very different the way we have our weddings. I mean, we have dance, but their dance is Caribbean. They have the Caribbean dance in their weddings, and we have the Indian dances in our weddings. So it's fascinating how chutney music is, and they have so the only time you can say, okay, yeah, they're doing this Indian thing is when they sing the actual wedding songs that they have maintained, just like we would do in India, from a particular part of India. I think a lot of Indians who came to the Caribbean islands were from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. They are provinces in India, and that's where the songs come from, and they'll sing the folk songs of the other wedding songs. But back to the Jamaican culture. So if somebody was to come over there and they were asking you, okay, give me an introduction into the different aspects of Jamaican culture, there's the first thing that hits them obviously, for everybody, is music. And when you talk about music, I don't even need to take the great one's name. I mean, everybody knows him.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to take his name. Everybody knows him. Nobody
Nobody.
needs it. So what is the journey of Jamaican music as such?
um well, I kind of learned this in school from, we had reggae music, but we have rock steady, we have all kind of music, but it is throughout the ages, and it all depends on, to rock steady, reggae, to dancehall, to all of that. And how it came about was, it depends on it was about the mood and how the people used to behave at that time. So you know how dancehall now, it's mostly guns. Almost every music you can hear about, it's dancing. It has to be doing with dancing, but you hear all sort of things happening in that music. And so some people would say that it stems from being calm, to kind of, rock steady, as the music suggests, to reggae beat, and then dance hall coming out to, like, I don't know if I should say the word, like, rebellious, so my Jamaican people don't come at me. But but that's where it stemmed from. Over the years, the music changes and people evolved and different things happen. But for the reggae music, where Bob Marley, of course, they talk about Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer, but those kind of people. We talk about them often. And Bob Marley's song is like the world stage music, One Love. It's like high up there. So
Yeah, I think Bob Marley has done for music what very few people could do. His impact on the uh, global music industry as an artist, very few people can realize. I I think he's huge in India. I'm sure he's going to be big in the Western world too. I mean, people sing his songs and sing his and keep creating new renditions of his music all the time. But is there something, let's say, if I was to say, uniquely folk, for in the folk genre too, that which is maybe separate from what Bob Marley and many other artists today are doing? Because obviously you have the influence of, let's say, modern instruments. Uh, Instrumentation is very different today. But let's say, like, for example, in India we have a proper folk music genre. The folk artists, they still create instruments out of natural products. All those instruments are used even today, and the singing is very different. I would not say it's absolutely classical, it's semi-classical. There is classical Indian music, which is also ancient, but there is semi-classical Indian music, which has a mix of folk styles and classical singing blended together, and they have their own unique way of doing it. So, is there something like that in Jamaica too, where there are different genres in music?
yes, we do. We have it. And in fact, some of our folk songs and our folk dances, it's used for different times. Like, I know the Dinky Minute, they used to say it used when someone dies. And some song like Kuma Famati Belly, Kuma Famati Belly. Those kind of songs, like the folk songs. But we have what we call JCDC, Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, and that is kind of helping us to keep our music, our folk songs, and all of that alive. So it's kind of what I knew when I was younger, and my parents and their parents' knew folk songs way back when. What they knew from now, it's kind of dying. It's dying out because we are becoming so modernized that we are taking on more of the European culture instead of actually developing and keeping our culture. And so we have people like Amina Blackwood Mead. She's a great storyteller in Jamaica too. She helps to keep our culture alive. JCDC, Jamaica Cultural Development, you can they do songs and dance and poetry and stuff to help actually keep it. We had Jankuno. our jankuno was like you have the belly, the belly woman. You have mask parades like what you have mask parades here. We used to have those things, and so I've not been back to Jamaica in a long while, and so I don't know if that still continues, but I know when JCDC does have their festival, they tend to actually have those kind of characters, the Jankuno character, involved inside. So to keep the culture and to help children, younger children, learn what our culture was and stuff like that. So um we
all
do
right.
have it.
So I guess, so another thing, like, is Jamaican culture, like you mentioned, most of the people who came in the early years, during the slavery times, so did they bring their old faith systems with them to Jamaica, or by the time the migrations happened, J- J- the Jamaican population that is today was by and large Christian overall, or is there the can you see the roots to the old faith systems existing anymore, or they're completely wiped out now?
Um from I can only speak from my experience and what I've seen over the years too. But in I think Jamaica has changed where our religion is concerned from our foreparents been brought to Jamaica. They have been they change because what happens, when you're colonized, you're going to have to learn the master's way. And when they were taken from Africa, which is mostly Nigeria and Ghana, the colonizers loved Ghanaians and the Nigerians because when they were coming on the trade, they felt as though their mortality rate was more than others. So they weren't dying as fast as the others. So they loved Nigerians and Ghanaian. When we came, our language kind of changed, but it had a lot of impact with our language. For example, Niam, I heard that Niam, when you say Niam, it means eat, but that's like a Nigerian way to mean eat. So our language changed, and then we began to speak what we call patois. It's spelled Patois. So we spoke patois, and that's a mixture of different languages, Germany, English, all sort of languages. So our thing have changed over the years. Our religion, get into our religion, it changed over the years. We are now focused on more Christianity than anything else. You may find a little bit of Jew or other persons, Muslims here and there, but Christianity is our main focus. And in fact, our churches, we have more churches in Jamaica per square mile than anywhere else
Wow.
in the world. So we have a lot of churches. And then I always wonder, my forefathers, before they knew Jesus, I'm a Christian by the way, but before we were colonized and given the Bible and everything, what were we doing before? So they would call it voodoo and obia. That's what I think they would call it, voodoo and obia. So that I don't.
So no, I completely understand, which is very fascinating. So now you're in Canada, and obviously you're a Christian, and you come over here and you see how Christianity is practiced over here. Is mainstream Canadian Christianity different from how it was practiced in Jamaica? Did Jamaican Christianity have its own unique cultural roots with its own way of celebrating the festivals, or it's pretty much the same, or it's something? So I'll tell you, like in India, you drive 100 kilometers here or there, and the way Hinduism is celebrated changes completely. It's very different. We have different, but the Hindu way is that we are fine with pluralism. We're fine with different ways of celebrating, uh, or in my case, like I'm a disbeliever, but even I am considered to be a Hindu in the larger Hindu pantheon. Like even disbelievers are called Hindu. Now, so is Jamaican Christianity in that sense different from mainstream Western Christianity, or they're pretty much the same? So how's your experience been?
Um, I find there's no when okay. So when I used to go to church in Jamaica, I find that my pastor actually I think he was actually a Christian. He was actually a Christian. Over here, I find it's more they're preaching more about money, prosperity preaching. Honestly, it's more prosperity preaching than anything else I've ever seen. And Jamaicans, my pastor, I see where when you give your tithes and your offering, I see where it actually goes to the people. Over here, for some churches, when I go, I see where it goes into buying cars and houses and lands and all these things. And I don't see much people benefiting from the Christianity here. That's what I see. I may be wrong, so don't come at me, people. I may be wrong for some people, but I think they're more prosperity preachers than anything else. I hardly go to church now because when I go, I just feel like I am going and I'm coming back the same. I'm not seeing where sick are being healed and the word of God is like literally being preached. It's more too much prosperity preaching for me. That's me.
So I guess capitalism got to the church too.
That's got to the church, man. Capitalism got to the church. I'm not speaking bad on the church, but it's just what I see. You know what I'm saying? It is so wrong.
So have you ever tried to maybe discover your ancient roots, or maybe go back, try to read about what your ancestors were, what their faith systems were like, or have you tried to incorporate some of those things in your own life?
You know, I tried. And then going back now, I heard, why are you indulging in such culticism or whatever they call it? And why am I barking up things from the devil and all of these things? I heard it all when I'm trying to go back to my roots and trying to find it. It is cult. It is of the devil. It's not of God. And like I said, it's like black people are practicing obi and voodoo, and we're not practicing the real religion, which is Jesus Christ and our faith, you know? So I don't know. I kind of stopped because I became afraid.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
why?
All right.
But yeah.
Now, Raquel, let's talk about the thing that I loved the most when I came across. Okay, let's talk about storytelling. So, how did you get into storytelling, and maybe let's tell us a brief background about Jamaican storytelling. Now, how does it come up? Because these stories, how far back do they go, and what are the origins of these stories?
Let me say, you know, storytelling starts from you are born, basically. I think because when a child comes home and from school and he starts telling stories about, hey, mommy, you know, this boy did that or whatever, it's story. We just kind of formulate it and put it into books, and we put things and we change the wording and make it so nice and sweet. But everyone has a story to tell. The life you live is a story. And how I became a lover of storytelling. We used to say that in Jamaica or in Africa, there's a proverb that says when a person, an elderly dies, it's like you lost an entire library because that person's mind was what you wanted to hear from. Didn't have books or things back there. So when I got into storytelling, it was from my grandfather. My grandfather loved to tell stories. And I remember most times we weren't rich. We didn't grow up rich. And I cherish those moments now because we had beautiful moonlight. That's when pollution wasn't so much. We still have the beautiful moonlight. We would go out, and you know how you love cricket? We play cricket in the moonlight. We used to play ring games, dance, sing, and my grandfather, we would sit down and we tell stories. Now, most times they'll tell dopey stories and you can't sleep at night. So dopey stories is ghost. We say ghost. That's what we call dopey. And we tell stories at night, and when you go to bed, you can't sleep. And so those stories began, and I became so fascinated with how they were telling the stories, the actions, everything, the ring games. I loved it. I love playing a part in my culture that way. And my grandfather was good at telling stories, I believed. And so the children, we come up every night, somebody would tell a story, they will try to find the scariest story to tell you at nights. And the ones who succeed at that, you know that everybody has to pack into one small bed, because everybody was now afraid to sleep by themselves. So we had to literally pack into a small bed to sleep, because we're telling a lot of stories. And so my grandfather, on Stories Under the Moonlight for me started under the nice moonlight, stars and everything. And when I grew up now, I went to college, and then I met this great storyteller, Amina Blackwood Meeks. She's a good storyteller in Jamaica. She told me a story, Dora and the Aki. And I remember that story just stuck to me, the way in which she was telling it. And it was just effortless. And from there, I began to say, I loved doing this thing. I love telling stories. I love when children are in the circle, and I will just sit down and tell them a story and how they are fascinated, the oohs, the ahs, the scariness and everything. So that for me was just how I got into storytelling from that. And
So,
then
these stories, I just have a question. These stories are formulated from the time the community comes from Nigeria, or these stories are from the time they have landed in Jamaica, and these stories are about the Jamaican experience?
Most of them some of the stories, like Anansi is from the Ghanaian people. The Anansi, the spider, he was a human, he had human form, and he was a spider too. And so Anansi the spider, when when Jamaicans take anything, we kind of mix it up, and it's like Chinese telephone. You hear somebody telling somebody, you whisper something into someone, and by the time it reaches the last person, then it all changes. So I think that's what happens over the years. Our stories was a strong part of our culture. Our ancestors used to use stories to actually get away. The masters, the Bakra masters, we call it, did not understand. Even our quilt, when they put the quilt on the line, that was a story. The way you cornrow your hair, that was how the slaves got away, because the cornrows in our hair was a path that you should take, and the quilt hung on the line, however it was hung on the line, it shows that you must either go for the runaway slaves, you can either go or you should stay. It was a message that was sent out. So our message was in stories, it was in telling songs, because some of the songs was Achichi Badoy, some of them are Allah, some are Bal. Those were like telling a story where the Bakra masters will be coming, and you are singing. The Bakra masters they are colonizers, but we call them Bakra masters. So we would be singing a song. We would be singing a song, and they don't know what the song is about. And that was how we spread our messages through the songs, through the stories, and through our hair. So these things are very important in our culture. And if Black people just recognize how strong we are as a people, then we can overcome a lot of things. But our song stories, yeah.
So, did the stories also talk about the struggles of the colonized by the colonizers? Are
Yes.
there any stories like that? If you don't mind, you can share them too.
Um, there is the stories are kind of, because we use animal characters to actually formulate those stories. So in terms of the Backmaster stories and stuff, people can make up their own like stories, but most of the songs was to get away and stuff like that. I don't really know a story that caters. People do tell stories about their experiences, and so those colonizers and stuff. So they tell their stories, but the songs was mostly what I had learned about um how to get away, the messages that are inside of the songs and stuff like that. So those songs I know. So I can sing a song for you and tell you.
Please do,
Yeah.
please do, please do.
So one goes, a chichibodoy, some of them a holla, some a ball, a chichibodoy, some of them a holla, some a blackbird, some of them a holla, some a ball, some a jankro, some of them a holla, some a chichibodoy, some of them a holla, some a ball, a chichibodoy. So it means when my ancestors were out in the field and they want to rest for a while, and they could not rest. They had to keep working and picking the cottons and so that they could sell it or give it to their masters. Now, whenever one of them wants to rest, maybe there's a pregnant woman on the in the field and she wants to rest, they would sing out whenever the masters are coming, they would say, Achichi Bodoy. So they start that song to show that, hey, they are actually coming. So that was how one of the songs came about. So it was to inform that Achichi Bodoy, some of them are Allah, some about. So the masters thought they were singing the song because of a bird and stuff like that. But it wasn't because of the bird. It was because of them coming, and they were alerting the other slaves that, hey, you need to start working and get up from your rest. That kind of thing.
It's fascinating. So a song comes up so that they can help their fellow people, and they can actually escape the colonizer while they're being
Mhm.
colonized. It's
Right.
fascinating. And now, but do you think most Jamaicans would know the history behind the song? Like the average Jamaican living in Jamaica would know the song, or they just know it as a song now?
I think now we have lots of drama teachers and teachers inside of the schools who can teach them these things. And like I said, Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, JCDC, is one of the medium where they can learn about their histories, the songs and the quilt and all of those things that were used.
All right. So when it comes to storytelling, it, it's only uh, like the story you mentioned during when we met. All right, so obviously that story can't be narrated here because we need so much music and things. We need music and many other instruments along with that. But if I was to say, so what, maybe a story that does not need I guess music involved, but it can still be narrated. Is there something like that? Could you share that with us? Like the average, what would an average Jamaican kid be hearing to?
What, say that again? What is the average?
What what's the story a young Jamaican kid would be told while growing up in Jamaica?
For me, I was told, like I said, I was told mostly ghost stories.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the Jamaicans like to scare their children, huh?
Oh yeah. At nights, because they want, especially when they want to go to bed, they tell them to go to bed and they can't sleep. And our grandparents are out on the veranda, which is like you guys call it balcony or stuff, but we call it veranda.
Oh, we do
Um,
it. We call it the veranda too.
okay, good. All right, good. So yeah, we go out on when they're out on the veranda. They're always sitting out on the veranda, especially when the moon is bright. And they will tell a lot of ghost stories and stuff. Um, but I can share a story with you.
Sure, please.
Yeah, this one is called "How Crab Lost Its Head."
Ah.
Did you know that crab don't have any head? Did you?
I don't know.
Ah, see? Now, this story is how crab lost its head. And when I came to Canada, I kind of asked somebody, like, what do you do when a person dies? And she was like, well, we don't do nothing. We just bury them. But not in Jamaica. In Jamaica, we have music, food, and everything. So 9 days after the person dies, 9 days, we would have called a 9 night. And so after the 9 night, then you call a setup a week. So the night before the person buries, then you have this big celebration, and you would call it, they call it the Dinky Mini celebration. So, but Dinky Mini is kind of a dance where you have to put your knees together and kind of move about and stuff. That Dinky Mini, and the song will go, Kuma famati belly, kuma famati belly, kuma famati belly, kuma famati belly, mati belly aguava jelly, kuma famati belly. So that song, I'll tell you what it means in a bit. So now Dinky Mini, so the Dinky Mini dance, Jamaicans, like I said, are very proud people. If you're dancing the Dinky Mini and your parents catch you and nobody not dead, you're in serious trouble, because that dance is for when somebody dies. And so your parents will say to you, if I catch you dancing that song one more time, I would put your head down on the block. And you say, but after me a crab. And so that is how I'm going to tell you how Crab lost his head. Now, long ago, Crab father was the head chief maker. And so Crab father would make every kind of head. He would make head like yours. He would make head like mine. He would make doctor heads, lawyer heads, bald heads, head with gray hair, head with long hair, head with all sort of head Crab father used to make. And so Crab father was born at a time when it was BC, before computer. So Crab father was born before computer. And people born in those times usually tell people, tell their children, come and learn the skills. They would tell the kids, come and learn the skills. And Crab, he was born AD. After that. And so Crab children who born after that, DAT, that is that in Jamaica. Children who born after that, them was what we call hard hears. They don't listen. Their ears tough. They can't listen. And so when they were born in that time, they believed that, hey, they're not supposed to learn anything much. They are always on the computer and everything. But Crab father decided that he wanted to teach his son how to make head. But kids nowadays, Crab, Sonny was like, no, daddy, I think we should, globalize and diversify and all of these things. And so he began to say, while we don't need two head makers in the family, we need one to sell the head and one to actually make the head. And so they had a big business booming. And Crab father was making heads, and Crab's son was going about to sell the head. And so they had a nice business, and they went to the market, and Crab's son went to the market to sell the head, and he sell off all the head. He made enough money. He made money and he put it in his left pocket, and he made money and put it in his right pocket, and he made money and put it all over. And so he said, yes, he made a lot of money that Saturday because market was booming. And so when he sold off all the heads, and when he was going home, this nice gentleman came to him and he was like, Crab, I'm coming, man, to get some head, man. I had to buy because I have this nice party I want to go to. And he was dressed in his nice suit and his bow tie and everything. And so he wanted a head to match it. And he said, what kind of head you have? And Crab said, no, man, I don't have no head. I sell them all off. And he said, but Crab man, I go into the party and I need to look good. I need a nice head. And Crab said, no, I don't have any head. I sell them off. And he said, how much did you make at the market? Crab said, I made enough money. And he took it out and he looked and he said, I made enough money. And he said, you know, if you give me your head, I will give you double the price. And Crab's son looked at it and he said, oh, he thought about it for a while and he said, all right. He checked the money and he said, oh, if I double it, I will get enough money. And he said, all right, I will give you my head. But then he thought, how would he, walk home and see to go home? So he took out the eyes, 2 eyes, and he tipped it on his shoulder and he started walking like this. And he gave it to the man and he said, all right, I'm going home with enough money. But when Crab reached the cross part, the walkway to reach home, he heard the song, Kuma Famati Belly, Kuma Famati Belly. People was dancing to the Dinky Mini. So Crab started wondering, then who died over there? Because he knew that it was the Dinky Mini. When the Dinky Mini plays, that was when somebody dies. And so as Crab came closer, he heard the music louder and he said, come on, mati belly, aguava jelly. When Crab reached, who you think died?
Just a crab.
Crab father died.
Whoa.
And Crab never learned how to make head. And so that is how Crab is now walking these days without a head when you see him walking like that. Kuma famati belly, kuma famati belly. So I think you should learn to make something from your parents and keep your own head. Keep thinking, man.
That's wonderful. I wish, especially if the cultures that we have, and we have this overbarging thing that we have to listen to our elders no matter what. And actually, this is a good story where we should listen to our elders.
Yes.
But we should also, use our brains. It's actually a perfect story because a lot of the listeners of my podcast are actually between that age group of 18 to 25. And in Indian culture, we tend to listen to our parents even a long time, and it's a good and a bad thing at times. I feel we need to break the shackles too. So in that sense, now let me take a few questions over here because people have started having so I don't know, maybe you would, is the Taino population still living in Jamaica, or is the interaction between the Tainos
I heard the Tainos, I heard they died out. When they came to colonize Jamaica, I heard all of them died out. Mm-hmm. They killed all of them.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So these stories, somebody has asked that Raquel is talking about, are there like references or is there are they or are just these stories are just oral traditions from the beginning and they've just carried on and on and on and on?
Yes, some of them are old traditions from the beginning and carried on, as well as people use, like for me, my story that you heard, Mongoose and the Calabash. Mm-hmm. I use that story as a lesson to teach children. So I kind of use the characters Anansi, Mongoose, and Mas Bedward in my culture. There's a song that was it, Mongoose. The song that you heard in the Mongoose and the Calabash. So people make up stories from what they have gone through and what they're hoping to teach, and from our culture, that what we have learned about our culture. Like Anansi. Anansi is like a god. It's like a deity god in Africa. So people use the stories and kind of make it their own, but most of them is from our tradition that we grew up with. Because I grew up listening to Anansi stories too, and that's how I get into it.
So talking about deities, so there are no local deities anymore left. Like the tribes that came from Nigeria, did they not bring their local deities? Now it's all about Christianity. Then the local deities is completely gone.
I think the Maroons kind of practices their own thing in the hills. I think they kind of practice their own thing. So if ever you want to, I think it's what the Maroon town in
Hmm.
Portland, or there is you can go there and you can learn stuff from the Maroons, but it's kind of a sacred ground. I think I went to Maroon Town once, and it is an experience that you can have, but mm, the deity, I think somehow it dies out. As I said before, sometimes they call it obia, voodoo.
I
Yeah.
know. Unfortunately, and it's a sad thing that colonialism has left such a scar on the psyche of people that people can't even celebrate their own culture now. And sometimes, I mean, this is the processes that different societies, and this is one thing I would say is different in India, is that this culture, while colonized, kept its faith. It kept its
Oh,
faith. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we did have the faith from outside coming in, but still the native land's faith is still the dominant faith in India.
There's a movie on Netflix called RRR.
Oh
It's
wow,
a
you also watched it?
I love that movie. Like, I rated love it. Oh my god, I can talk about that movie forever. I love it.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
god, I love it. I
Oh,
love it.
you're gonna have a few more Indian fans now, Raquel, that you love RRR.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I put it all up and said, people, go watch this movie. Go watch it. Go watch it. I share it all over. I watched it twice, and I'm
Oh
gonna
wow.
watch it again. I love that movie. Oh my god. I was on the edge of my seat.
Oh my
I love
goodness.
it.
Yeah.
I
So
wish I was in it.
so So somebody has asked about environmental issues in Jamaica. Is there any work, or are there any efforts in Jamaica to save the environment? Because I guess a significant chunk of the land over there is also related to environmental issues. Is there any concern over there dealing with the environmental changes, with climate change and all of that? Is there a cultural effort from the locals in Jamaica to make sure to do something about it?
There are persons who kind of go around and trying to educate people on the environment, but I personally don't believe that much is being done towards it, and it's because mainly it's political based. Now, getting too much into the political aspect, but if we can if we can turn each parties, like most persons of the JLP, the PNP, those are kind of the two rule main parties. If they focus more on climate changes and things like that, I don't think the focus is really there, to be honest. It's political wars and stuff. Ugh, man, I could get in that for days, but I don't want to get in too much,
Yeah.
But climate change, and people, some persons are there. The effort is not there, money wise and people wise to actually cover it. But it's not. It's sad, but it's not. They need more help. They need more education towards it. It is a bad state, actually, because sometimes we have where our dump is. We don't in Canada, where we put boxes in one. We kind of organize where we should put our fruits and our vegetables if they spoil and everything. The word slipped me, but we organize our garbage. And so, not in Jamaica, everything goes into one place, and it just goes down the drain like that.
Mm.
So not much effort has been done.
So somebody has asked, are there any influences of Caribbean music on the mainstream African American music industry, or it's the other way around? It's now the mainstream African American music industry influencing the Caribbean music industry. Which way is the tide towards more? If I was to ask that.
I'm not mostly a dancehall or you know out there kind of fan, but I think Jamaica is kind of holding their own where it comes on to their music. A lot of persons love our dancehall or reggae and stuff. So I think they're holding their own. As for maybe buying out, selling out, some of them they have incorporated some like African culture because there's a song called Ambala Manashatkala. That song, I think it sounds African and it sounds Caribbean and it they kind of the genres kind of come together and they blend. It depends on how they want to do their music, right? But I think Jamaicans are very brilliant people and they can come up with anything. If they came up with rocksteady reggae um and dancehall, they I'm sure there's more genres to come with in terms of their kind of beats. So they might call it a fusion between um African USA and the Caribbean. So they can do that.
All right, Raquel. Before we wrap it up, I can't end the discussion without talking about Jamaican food. Full disclosure: the only thing I know about it.
I
Oh,
love Indian food too.
the one thing that I have, I don't eat. So there's a particular kind of chicken. It's called Jamaican jerk chicken,
Jerk
and
chicken.
yeah, so I love that. I've had it multiple times. In fact, let me. Somebody has just said that in India, in a city in southern India, in the state of Karnataka, in the province of Karnataka, to make it even clearer for you, um, there is a restaurant, they say, and the Caribbean islands cricketers, when they come and play in India, they play cricket in the local leagues, or for the national team, the West Indies national team. They tend to frequent this Jamaican food restaurant. So what is your regular Jamaican food like? So maybe people have not had it.
Okay, so we have our national dish is called the ackee. So our national fruit is the ackee. And so the saltfish, so we put together the saltfish, ackee and saltfish. And how the saltfish came about, we used to eat ackee with just about anything. Roast breadfruit. You know what breadfruit is?
Mhm.
You're gonna look up for it, man. You taste a piece of fried breadfruit or roast breadfruit with the ackee. Then the saltfish came about because Jamaicans used to trade. We used to trade, but then when we trade to other countries, they never the persons they trade back saltfish instead of giving us the money. I would say, oh, is this what it is? But Jamaican, we love to take our Anton fashion. That means we use our hand and make anything we get whatever we are get, whatever hand we're dealt, we are going to use it to something good. And so that's how they started putting the ackee with the codfish, the saltfish, and we call it ackee and saltfish. And we realize it's nice and it's tasty. You mix it with your sweet peppers, your onions, or whatever you want to do with it. And you make your ackee and your saltfish dish. You eat it with dumplings. You eat it with the roast breadfruit or fried breadfruit and plantains and anything you want to eat it with. Boiled bananas, anything. So that's our national dish, ackee. And the ackee is a fruit, but that ackee is also poisonous. So if you don't clean it properly, you can actually die from it. So you have to know someone who can clean that, because if you don't take out, there's a red thing inside of it. You don't take that out and you don't clean out that ackee and the seed too, you can die from it. So you have to be careful how you eat that. The jerk chicken is not jerk chicken like what you see here, where people just put it in their oven and say, oh, and put jerk sauce on it. And no, jerk chicken is like an experience, man. Listen, jerk chicken has to do with a pan. We have this iron pan and we put like a grill on it, and It's you can smell it from miles away when the chicken is jerking. And so that is where you get your natural jerk chicken from. That's how we jerk the chicken, not no oven jerk with salt with just the sauce on it. That's how you get the natural jerk chicken. So the food there, rice and peas. Funny enough, when I went to England and I was studying there, and I went to the cafeteria and I'm like, "There's no food here," and they're like, "What do you want to eat?" I said, "Rice and peas," and they're like, "Okay, we'll make it for you." Come the next day, there's a rice over here and there's a peas over there. I'm like, I'm like, no, that's not rice and peas. It has to be together and it has to have a certain color and stuff. So
Yeah. So I guess so are there any authentic Jamaican food restaurants, let's say in the greater Toronto area, where somebody wanted to go and try them out?
I'm in Ottawa. I'm not in Toronto. I'm in Ottawa. But in Toronto, I don't know much. I don't know
Okay.
much about Toronto.
What about Ottawa? Are there any authentic Jamaican restaurants in Ottawa?
There's one called Little Ochi.
Mm-hmm.
Here in at Walkland, there's Island Grill.
Mm-hmm.
There's one called Island Grill. That one I think you can get Jamaican food from. You get jerk chicken, but it has a sauce. It's mainly the sauce that you can taste from it. But say authentic. Not really, but it is the closest to it.
All right, all
Yeah.
right. So before we wrap it up, Raquel, are there? I'll leave you with the last words. Anything you want to say? Anything? Any projects, if people had to contact you and get in touch with you and with your work, please go for it.
Oh, for me, first of all, Kushal, you need to take me to India. I need I need to go to India. I've been dying. I want to go to India, so that should be on the table. But if any one of your people want to contact me, you can go through they can contact you, Kushal. You can give my number to them. I won't tell out my number here, but my Facebook, you can go on Facebook, and I'm on Facebook. It's Jane, and you can contact me from there. I have TikTok and I don't have Instagram as yet. I'm I'm still in the BC age.
That's okay. That's
But
why you're so happy, because you're not on social media.
I'm not fully on social media at all. I'm not on social media. I need to go out there. I need to go out there and put myself out there more. But I'm so scared of social media, man.
No, I don't blame you. Everybody's scared of social media. It just brings the worst out of people. But I
Yeah,
guess in my case, it's a part of the trade. So I
yeah.
guess I have to live with it. So I am on social media. But Raquel, it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And I wish you nothing but the best. And thank you very much for coming on the podcast and talking with me. And I hope Indians who listen to this today are happy that there are other cultures, because the beauty of the human race is the diversity that we have, and I think we should celebrate that diversity and learn of each other. And now that you like RRR, there are going
Oh
to be a lot
yes.
of Indians who like you.
I love RRR. Man, one of my favorite movie of all times.
All right, guys, so you know the drill. You can follow Raquel on TikTok or on Facebook. And if you want to support me, you know the drill. You can subscribe to the Cārvāka podcast YouTube channel. You can like this video. You can also go on Spotify or iTunes and leave a rating over there. And if you want to become a member, you can join on YouTube or on Patreon, or you can send your donations to UPI, or you can buy the Cārvāka podcast merch. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste, take care, bye bye.
Thank you for having me.